Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show called Team Chicago Challenge. On YouTube here, I've been putting motorcycle clips up, so if you want to learn more about motorcycle racing, just search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing, and there's hundreds of clips there. But we're continuing on with my history, the history of my racing, the history of Team Chicago, and the history of motorcycling in the Midwest. And I'm joined with my granddaughter, Alyssa, and we're going to continue. We're into the later part of 20 teens. And we got some interesting stories. We're going to talk about the EAA. What's the EAA? We're going to talk about some flying cars. Yeah, that's going to be part of this show too. But anyhow, Alyssa is my son's daughter. And what are you looking at right there, Alyssa?
Oh, this is the Pioneer Village. So what is it and where is it located and how did you find out about it?
Okay. I was traveling to race, I think 1 to 24 hours in California at Willow Springs. So I think it was 2000. And I'm going across Interstate 80, going across Nebraska, which is a long trip. Nebraska is 480 miles across.
Yeah.
So there was tornadoes, and I'm listening to the local news. I listen to the radio when I'm in my truck, and they said the tornadoes are around Interstate 80. But if you go to US 6, with parallels Interstate 80, it's about 25 miles south of Interstate 80, that there isn't as much threat of tornadoes. Mm-hmm. So now I'm on Highway 6, middle of Nebraska, and I come across this building, and there's a Model T up, mounted in front of it. It looked like an old car dealership. And I look in the window, I get out of the truck, and I look in the window, and all these wagons, turn-of-the-century wagons, and I'm like, I mean, from the 1800 wagons and carriages. So I said, man, where am I? Where are we, Toto? So I made a note that on the way back, I was going to make sure I was going to stop there, because this was like at night or early evening. So on the way back, I stopped, and I only gave myself an hour. Mm-hmm. Man, you can't even scratch the surface in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. So I always promised myself that I was going to go back again. Well, when my wife and I made a couple of trips, made trips to California, I said, well, I'm going to stop back there. I contacted them. Well, it turns out they have a huge motorcycle collection. Huge. Basically, most of their motorcycles probably came from the Schwinn factory, because the guy that started Pioneer Village was the main man behind cellophane in the 1930s. Created cellophane, or built that business, clear plastic. So he took his wealth, went back to his hometown, and put together Pioneer Village to show everything invented in America. In fact, they have a sign above the door that says, man came, and just in 1 century or 2 centuries. I mean, we're 2020 right now. In the last 2 centuries, man have gone from candles, horse and wagon, to computers and air travel and space travel and crossing the country in 4 hours. You know, I mean, so I mean, and that's what they try to capture. So I'm going to show you some of the motorcycles in their collection. And what a great group of people running Pioneer Village. It's still run by the family. And if you ever want to plan a good trip, good motorcycle trip, and there's a motel on the property, Pioneer Village, I think everybody in America should stop by Pioneer Village. So let's go look at some motorcycles that they have in their collection at Pioneer Village. Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt, and it's Team Chicago Challenge. We're at Pioneer Village, which I consider maybe the greatest museum in the United States. They have a collection of everything that was made in America starting at about 1830. The whole explosion of the Industrial Revolution, the Industrial Age. And the guy that started this, Harold Warp, who made his fortune in Chicago, but he's from this town, Minden, Nebraska. It's about halfway the length of Nebraska, about 700, 800 miles from Chicago. But it is the greatest museum as far as I'm concerned. Lucky for me, Marshall Nelson brought us up here where the motorcycle collection is. There's some motorcycles here I have never seen, some motorcycles I never even heard of. So I got a great motorcycle collection. That's what we're going to look at in this show. And we're going to go downstairs and we look at some of the automobiles and the wagons. I'm going to do another show from that. But we're at Pioneer Village in the middle of Nebraska, and this is one great collection of motorcycles. I'm so happy I can bring this to you.
How many days did it take you to go through the
Well,
Pioneer
sadly,
Village?
I was only there one day. And but I got to see quite a bit. And then I also have done with the airplanes they have there. I mean, they have two totally priceless airplanes. They got one of the early Wright brothers planes, and they got the airplane that Glenn Curtis, to win a air race, I mean, to show how great aircraft are, he flew from Albany, New York to New York City and won $10,000 in this aircraft that they got hanging up in Pioneer Village. And I did a whole thing on the value of aircraft, which brings us into what you're looking at there. So what does it say there?
Yeah.
You know anything about?
Yeah, what's up with these flying cars?
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
All right, let me tell you that story.
Many, many years ago, my good friend Mike Calvert, now I mentioned Mike Calvert in earlier shows, because Mike Calvert was involved with my early racing, and he filmed my road race on the 4 and 6 Seika, Jim Rashid Seika at Indy, one of my first road races. Mike was very instrumental in the early days going to the races. Well, Mike one time he came up with he had tickets, or he had a pass, that if we went to the EAA, we'd be able to get into the more exclusive flight line. Back then, you had to know somebody to know somebody. And I went to the EAA, which is the Experimental Aircraft Association annual event, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. One of the biggest events in the entire world. Over 7 million people go. It's over a week. I mean, it's a week long. Takes up the whole air base up there in Oshkosh. They have a camping area that's a mile by a mile. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a huge event. But I did learn something about the Wright brothers engine, and I've been fascinated ever since.
So on a trip in Wisconsin in the wintertime, I drove by the museum. I said, I'm going to go in there and talk to who's ever in charge of communications to see if I can get a press pass. And Mr. Dubinsky, God, what's his first name? We had a discussion. I told him I'd do a motorcycle racing show, and he said, of course he would give me because there is a connection between motorcycles and aircraft. Glenn Curtis had a motorcycle in 1908, which I mentioned earlier in this series, that went 130 miles an hour at Ormond Beach in 1908 with a V8 engine. Glenn Curtis used the motorcycle to test his engines. He then made a bigger engine and put it in an aircraft and built his first aircraft. He's one of the early pioneers, Glenn Curtis. So the connection between motorcycles and, so they've adopted me, they treat me well, they give me press passes, they give me parking. They're as nice as can be, and in return I shoot beautiful TV shows. So what I'm going to show you is one clip from the flying airplanes, because I covered that. There's two of them. One is like a dune buggy, and the other one is a regular car that you can drive on the street and you can fly.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to show you one of the pilots took me in the cockpit of a B-25, but it's the U.S. Marine Corps peanut butter and jelly, PJ, yeah, PJ, right? It's a B-25 that the Marines fly. Mm-hmm. And Skip Waltman. So he takes me in the cockpit of this B-25 and shows me how you would fly a B-25. So it's a twin engine aircraft, no steering, so when they're going down the runway, both them engines got to be running at equal power. Mm-hmm. And even when they're landing, because they have no steering, they're really steering with the engines. But this is a priceless piece of video that I'm going to show you about flying a B-25. We see the U.S. Marine PBJ, a replica of an aircraft that flew in New Guinea, and I was very fortunate to be taken into the cockpit by Colonel Skip Waltman as he tells us about flying B-25s. That I must use the other two.
Colonel Skip Waltman, we're sitting in the cockpit of the Devil Dog. It's a B-25J. It's been converted over to Marine specs. We've taken the glass nose off the airplane. We've replaced it with 850 cals, 250 cals on each side, both operated from the cockpit. If you look at the cockpit of this airplane, the only thing that's been upgraded is the avionics, and as you can see, we have modern avionics on the airplane. Everything else that's not avionics is original. This is original quadrant, superchargers, cowl flaps, gear, everything. And she's a good flying airplane. We fly this airplane about 100 hours a year, and we do it so that the public can see it. We take the airplane to the public. We don't want the public to have and come and see us. Everybody that works here, whether you're a pilot, a mechanic, a ground crew, is strictly voluntary. We take no pay, no benefits. We do this because we want to bring these airplanes and preserve these airplanes so that when my tour as a curator is done, that the next guy has a good piece of equipment to carry on. Now this particular airplane is powered by a pair of 2800 engines. That's 1700 horsepower side. It's probably the most powerful twin engine airplane you'll ever fly. It has some quirks because it's a 70-year-old airplane, but once you get it up to altitude, it's trimmed out. It's literally a hands-off airplane. So when a guy lands this airplane, normally a pilot likes to make a three-point landing. Well, we never do a three-point landing with this airplane. We'll land nose high, and we'll hold that nose off as long as we can, because that nose wheels are free swivel. And when that nose comes down, we want the airplane as slow as it can be, because if it starts to do this, you're probably not going to keep it on the runway. And I would certainly hate to be the guy that damaged the airplane. Other than that, she's a sweetheart. She does what she was meant to do well. This particular airplane, although it was built by North American as a medium bomber, the Marines did not use this as a medium bomber. They used this as a ground support airplane. So when they ran in at 150 feet and activated the cannons, they were lighting off 12 50 caliber machine guns, and they did a lot of damage. And when they come off the target and came back around, they would normally have a half a bomb load, and they could drop a half a bomb load, but it was strictly by sight. They did not have a Norton bomb sight in this particular airplane.
Thank you, Skip. And now let's watch a very special flyover as they line up a mock raid on Tokyo commemorating the Doolittle Raid, 1942, 16 B-25s launched from the deck of the USS Hornet with less than 400 feet to take off. The sights, the sounds of these aircraft flying overhead, it is great. It looks great. It sounds great.
All right, so Grant, how did you catch all the B-25s on the video?
Just by chance. And I generally go to the EAA on the first Monday. The event starts on a, well, actually the event starts on a Monday and runs through the following Sunday. And it's the last week in July. Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's open to the public. I think costs $20, $25. I just happened to be there when they were celebrating the Doolittle Raid. The Doolittle Raid was 13 B-25s took off from an aircraft carrier. This was within 6 months of Pearl Harbor. They put B-25s on an aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet, got within 400 miles of Japan, and they took off and they raided Tokyo and hit a couple other cities. So that was called the Doolittle Raid. So they were replicating the Doolittle Raid. I happened to be there on that day, and that's how I captured all that great footage. It's spectacular.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the engine, I mean, I love engines. I love motorcycle engines. I love aircraft engines. So that's one of my fascinations.
Yeah. All right, so what is this, the Chicago Wise Guys?
Well, talk about engines and fascinating engines. Dennis Firkus is one of my oldest friends. Going back when I was 13 and he moved in the neighborhood when he was 10. And we were good friends then. He played bass guitar, I played bass guitar. He got into cars. I had a cool 63 Chevy. But then I found motorcycles. Well, he stuck with cars. He's part of the Chicago Wise Guys. So I was talking to him, maybe, what year is that Wise Guys thing?
2019.
2019. I was probably talking to him in 2015. I went by his shop. He's got a shop on Elston Avenue. And I said, are you still racing with the Wise Guys? 'Cause I sort of remember Freddie being friends with them guys. And one guy that worked at Zenith when I had the coffee truck is racing with the Wise Guys. So, I mean, you talk about a small world. And then I said, well, how fast are your cars? And he said, 6 seconds. 6 seconds is huge. Huge. Quarter mile in 6 seconds. I mean, the only thing faster than these guys would be funny cars, NHRA funny cars, pro stock cars about the same, and top fuel dragsters. So a 6 second car at a drag strip is huge. And when he told me that, I determined from that moment on, because of our friendship for all those years, that I was going to do a couple shows with the Wise Guys every year. At least one show, or at least it's 2 shows, but I would cover their event. And I've been doing that since I think 2014 or 2015. So let's look at a little. I'm going to show you Denny going down the track, and it's pretty impressive.
Next up, Dennis Firkus with the Cobalt in the far lane. He's got an 814 cubic inch running on 118 octane gasoline. Dennis Firkus is a 2018 Wise Guys champion. He also was the champion in 2014 and 2016. He's got that Chevy Cobalt sponsored by Dunright on Elston Avenue in Chicago. Wait the stage, we're watching the staging lights. The two lights come on. Here is Dennis Firkus turning 667. 206 miles an hour. Graziano turns a 713, 185 miles an hour. Dennis Firkus with the Cobalt's got that 814 cubic inch engine running 118 octane gasoline. Got a 5-speed Liberty Trans. Speed Service built the engine, sponsored by Dunright. Alex Kucha is the current point leader. Dennis Firkus is the Wise Guys champ, 2014, 16, and 18. As they stage, Dennis turning a 6691 at 205. Alice Kucha with the Duster turned a 682 at 201 miles per hour.
All right, so what are these pictures here with Heather videotaping you?
Well, that is the Norton show, and that year I put my Triumph in the show. Now this is at MCC Motorcycle Center. They're on Lake Street. No, they're on St. Charles Road and Villa.
Oh, okay.
So it's about half a mile west of 83 on St. Charles Road is MCC.
Mm-hmm.
And every year the Norton Owners group has a motorcycle show there. And they're all friends of mine from the Norton group.
Mm-hmm.
So I cleaned my Triumph up and put my Triumph in the show. Heather came by, Taylor came by, and I won first place in the competition class.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'll show you a little footage from MCC and the Norton guys.
Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. This is Team Chicago Challenge. We are at MCC in Villa Park, Illinois, right on St. Charles Road, half a mile west of 83. This is the Norton Owners, the Chicago Norton Owners Club. This is their annual show. And this year I even brought my Triumph. So we're going to talk to some of the people here, talk about some of these bikes. Norton guys, they're all friends of mine. That Crazy Art's even here. I mean, the day is complete. So let's check out and see what's going on at MCC, Chicago Norton Owners Club, motorcycle show, and let's see if I can pick up a trophy. That'd be pretty cool. Now we're looking at a 1952 Hydroglide Harley Davidson. It's got the panhead engine and the pogo seat. The other American-made bike is this 1912 Indian. It is a twin-cylinder motorcycle. It is very rare, very authentic. And in 1912, that was the first year that the Indians added a clutch.
And I think we are running out of time in this week's show. So I want to thank you again. We have now reached 20 TV shows.
Nice.
We're going to do one more to wrap this whole thing up.
and I hope my audience has enjoyed it. And I want to thank you deeply for being a real trooper and putting up with me.
Of course.
But are these interesting stories, or?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, do you think we have captured 50 years of motorcycling? I mean,
Absolutely,
between the Toys for Tots, the Norton Owners, the At the Rock, swap meets. I mean, there's many things that are involved in the motorcycle community. And
Right.
I'm happy I've been part of it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I love to hear from my audience. To contact me, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. And remember to search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt, Motorcycle Racing. I recommend going to the World of Motorcycle Museum. It's just off Indiana 39, 4 miles south of North Judson, Indiana. And give them a call at 574-896-3172. You'll have a great time at the World of Motorcycle Museum, and you may meet me there.